So I'm going to talk about a somewhat unusual episode from the Shiva Purana and certain unusual sculptural depictions as seen in temples in Kanchipuram. So if you go to Kanchipuram, Kanchipuram can be described as the temple capital of India because there are more temples per person, per capita than perhaps in any other place. I think only Bhubaneswar may come close. There are about 7 or 8 Pallava temples there, still in very original condition. They are built out of sandstone. And this is one of them. This is a temple called the Mrityunjayeshwara temple or Iravasthanam. And if you go to the side of this temple, you can see that the wall is replete with sculptures. The Dwarapalakas are the corner, there's a nice Makaratorana. There are some very familiar sculptures. There is a Gangadhara here with Shiva standing up and Ganga descending with Parvati watching. There is a Kala Samhara Murti here where it's the episode of the Markandeya and Shiva comes to the rescue of Markandeya. But there is a central sculpture here. And if you look at it, it seems to be Shiva in a yoga pose. This is Yoga Dakshina Murti, you might ask. But if that is Dakshina Murti, who is this person here? So this can be a bit of a puzzle. And if you go just across the street from this temple, there is another temple called Piravasthana or Punarbhaveshwara temple. And that temple is there in the distance, is also maintained by the ASI. And this is the temple close up. It's a very small temple, but you can see its walls also have some interesting sculptures. And if you look at this particular wall on the northern side, you see, of course, the Dwarapalakas, and you see a similar Shiva in a yoga pose, but there is a person underneath here, and Brahma and Vishnu are on the other two sides. So, who is this person? This is my contention that this is a depiction not of yoga, Shiva in yoga pose, but as Jalandhara Samhara. Now, the Jalandhara Samhara is not very well known to a lot of people. So let me explain this. It's very interesting that no Chola temple or later temple, Pandya temple, Vijayanagara era, you rarely see, I haven't seen any. I'm sure there must be some temple somewhere that has a Jalandhara sculpture, but I have not seen any in some of the about 70, 80 temples I visited. I have not seen any of any Jalandhara Samhara. To really understand this puzzle of Shiva in yoga pose, but saying it's a Samhara Murti, you have to look at some sculptures in the Kanchi Kailasanada temple. Kailasanada temple is it's the name today. Original name is Rajasimha Pallaveshwara. That is the temple built by Rajasimha Pallava. The Kailasanada temple has several episodes from the Jalandhara story in different parts of the temple, and some sculpture are also repeated in different, slightly varying poses. We'll look at an overview of this. If you have not seen it, I urge you to go visit Kanchipuram just to see this temple. This is the Kanchi Kailasanada temple. It's actually two Shiva temples. That one is the Kailasanada, Rajasimha Pallaveshwara. The smaller one here is not the Gopuram. It is another Shiva temple. It's built by his son Mahendra Varmeshwara. And then there are several shrines inside, outside this temple. Mini shrines built by the queen, Rajasimha's queen Rangapataka. So just to give a quick introduction to the Kailasanada temple, almost every inch of every wall is covered with sculptures here. I showed you this miniature shrines here. These are called Devakulikas. And there are 8 of these Devakulikas or mini shrines in front of the temple. And 56 Devakulikas, surrounding the temple on the inside, like a garland, like a mala or a malika. So this is what the temple looks like inside. And it is these shrines, couple of these shrines that we have to look for the Jalandhara story. This is the northern side of this is the northern side. But if we go to the southern side, it's very interesting. In all the Devakulikas, all these mini shrines, you can see each one is a complete temple. It has 6 vargas. There is the Adhishtanam, the Padam, the pillars, Prastara, Griva, Shikara, all of that is there. And in each shrine, behind these pillars, there is a sculpture at the back of this, which are different episodes of different Puranic stories. Okay, and there's even small sculptures at the top, but we'll ignore them for now. So you can see this one is Narasimha and Hiranyakashipu. This one here is the one that interests us. This is Jalandhara birth. So two of the mini shrines in Kailasanada on the inner corridor have depictions related to the Jalandhara episode. One is the birth of Jalandhara, Jalandhara Sambhava, and the one is the death of Jalandhara, which is the Jalandhara Samadha. And here you may recognize the sculpture that is shown in the other two temples, Kanchipuram temples, Pallava temples, where Shiva is in yoga pose, and then there is a large person underneath, and so on. So, but first, before we come to this particular, let me look at because why is there usually Shiva only a destruction of an asura is shown. Rarely is the birth of an asura shown, but it is a very detailed and complicated story. And for some reason, they have delighted in showing 2 different or 3 different versions of this. So we talk about the birth of Jalandhara. How was Jalandhara born? So the story is that once Indra, along with Brahma, Vishnu, and other devas, went to visit Shiva in Kailasa. But in the original story, it says only Indra and Brahma, and Shiva, to test their knowledge, stood in their path as an ascetic and wouldn't let them go. But in the Kailasanada sculpture, you see that it is Shiva is shown as a Gana. So it is shown that the Ganas, Shiva Ganas, are standing outside his abode and will not let the Devas, including Brahma, Indra, Vishnu, all of them inside. They are making a lot of noise. When they are making a lot of noise, one more Gana joins the crowd. And as soon as this Gana joins them, the noise level, they all start making incredible noise and then refuse to let Indra inside. Very angrily, Indra, what happens? He lifts his thunderbolt, his Vajrayudha, and throws it at this Gana. Now you will see, this is Indra, this is Agni, this is Brahma, and this is Vishnu standing in the back. And this sculpture cannot be photographed in one shot because the pillars are hiding it. You can see the sculpture. The pillars hide it. You can't take a good shot of that sculpture. But you can see that, these devas are come to visit and the ganas are on the other side. And so these ganas are on this other side. These ganas are all raging. And see, you can see the spilling over and trying to challenge all the devas here. Okay. But this is the new Gana. This is actually Shiva in disguise. You see, he's four-armed. No Gana is four arms. Second, he's seated on some lotus pedestal. So this Gana himself is special. He's seated on a lotus pedestal. And not knowing who it is, angry Indra takes his Vajrayudha and throws it. In this episode, it is shown that Agni and Brahma restrain him from doing it, saying, no, please be careful. You know what happened to Kamadeva when he tried this. Even for a flowery arrow, Shiva's third eye opened and he burnt, and that will happen to you. You hold him, but he apparently starts to hurl it. And the angry Shiva's third eye opens. Now, if we go back to the story, infuriated Shiva opened his third eye, but Brahma, Vishnu, in this, you can see in this episode, this is Vishnu at the back is threatening, warning Indra with the finger. No, don't do that. Don't take your weapon. So this is the Vajrayudha that Indra is holding in his hand. So in this episode, it is shown that he has not yet cast his weapon. But in the actual Purana, it says that the weapon was launched. So Rudra opened his eye, and the opened eye of Rudra caused tremendous flame, and Brahma and others fell at his feet and asked for mercy not to destroy Indra. Then Shiva then asked, what should I do? Because my anger has already been released. So they asked that he let it out somewhere else, and so he lets his eye into the ocean. And into that ocean, when he casts his eye, it's very similar to the birth of Kartikeya, where the Agni enters, the Agni, Kartikeya is born out of the Agni of Shiva's eye, and then he is brought up by the Kritikas, and that is why he's called Kartikeya. In this case, he is born of the ocean, and that is depicted below. So in this, you can see that this Gana is depicted here above, seated on a lotus. This is supposed to be Shiva himself. And here in this lower part of this sculpture, you can see a person. This is Jalandhara. And you can see that the lotus sculpture has done something very interesting. He has integrated the leaves of the lotus and some water creepers to show that this is water. It's very difficult to depict water in a sculpture. So they have done that. They generally depict water with the lotuses and aquatic plants. even if it is seawater, just as it's a sabhava, it's an expression of how to depict water in sculpture. And so this asura, this person is born, and so since he is the essence of Shiva himself, he is a very powerful being. And there is enormous noise, and the rishis and all turn to Brahma and say, what happened? What is this enormous noise in the ocean? So Brahma goes to the Samudra and asks, and then the Samudra says, this at the confluence of the Ganga, this child was born. I don't know how this child is born. And Brahma, understanding what has happened, says, okay, he is the essence of Shiva. And the child immediately jumps up and grabs Brahma's neck and shakes it. And Brahma's eyes start watering. And Brahma says, since you made my eyes start watering, I will name you Jalandhara, and grants him a boon that he will be a very virtuous ruler. You see, a lot of these asuras are actually, while they turn adharmic, they start off in a very dharmic fashion. So Vishnu, this asura is actually the essence of Shiva himself, and he is blessed by Brahma as somebody who will have a virtuous life, rule virtuously, and will be married to a very beautiful and chaste wife. So that is the story. So that's the story here. And this Jalandhara, then he was a dharmic ruler for a long time. So in all these Asura stories, you have a rise and fall, like you have with Mahabali Chakravarti and so on. And then one day the story goes that Rahu comes to see him headless, and the Jalandhara asks him, why are you headless? And then he talks about the Kurma Avatara episode, that there is a churning of the ocean. So in the meanwhile, Jalandhara has married another Asura, Kalanemi's daughter. Her name is Vrinda, and she is extremely chaste, and she is a very devoted Vishnu Bhakta, like equivalent to Prahalada and Narada and Dhruva. She is one of the greatest of Vishnu Bhaktas. And in the episodes later on, when Jalandhara goes out to war, she is always praying to Vishnu while the war is happening. And so, because of her prayers and her chastity, Jalandhara is always protected. Even Vishnu cannot defeat him. Even Shiva cannot defeat him. That is the power that Brahma's boon gave, because he is born of Shiva's essence, and because of his wife's chastity and bhakti, he becomes invincible. So we know in all these stories what happens. The invincible person becomes arrogant, and in one case, because this Rahu comes and complains to him, he gets angry. So sends a messenger to Indraloka and asks, why did you churn the ocean and take away all the gems from the ocean? So Indra gives him an explanation which is not satisfactory. So Jalandhara invades Indraloka and defeats Indra and the Devas. And so they ran in pity to Vishnu to help them. Vishnu says, I will battle him because you asked me to battle him. But he is invincible because he is the essence of Shiva, and also because he is protected by Vrinda's bhakti. So Vishnu goes to battle him. Vishnu is also, they fight to a standstill, and Vishnu gives him a boon, and he says, come and reside in leave Vaikunta and come and live in my town, my city. The story is that this Jalandhar, today there is a city in Punjab called Jalandhar, and they say that is named after Jalandhara, that is the town of Jalandhar. So Vishnu leaves Vaikunta and goes to live in this place. In his city, actually it says Patala Loka, that city called, and then thanks to Vishnu's protection, he quickly defeats every other king and becomes lord of all the three worlds. Then he got so arrogant, he wanted to go and attack Shiva himself in Kailasa, and he boasted of his invincibility. And somebody said, not why Vrinda, even Parvati is very beautiful. Shiva is just an yoga, ascetic yoga, is the lord of the Smashana and all that. Why don't you try to acquire Parvati? And so he goes to Kailasa and boasts and says, I will take Parvati herself. And in this, the battle commences, and then Kartikeya, Ganesha, Veerabhadra all come to battle him. They are all defeated by Jalandhara. And so in this situation, when he comes to attack Parvati herself, in the meanwhile, he does some Maya and creates Gandharvas in the air. And seeing the Gandharvas play music, Shiva is subsumed by the Maya, and he starts dancing to the music of the Gandharvas. And then Jalandhara tries to conquer Parvati. Parvati then jumps, escapes, and calls Vishnu and asks Vishnu, can you not see, how can you still protect this person? Simply because his wife is a Vishnu Bhakta, don't you see what kind of adharma he is doing? So Vishnu accepts, and Parvati is his sister, and so on. So Vishnu accepts, and then Vishnu says, disguised as Jalandhara, he visits not Jalandhara but Vrinda. Sorry, there's a mistake. So disguised as Jalandhara himself, he visits Vrinda. When Jalandhara was in trying to challenge Shiva and doing all this battle in Kailas. So when that happens, uh, Vrinda, Jalandhara's wife, gets up from her prayers and thinks her husband has come, and so abandons the prayer to greet her husband. And Jalandhara then lost the protection. Now Jalandhara continues to challenge Shiva, mocks him. At this point, an enraged Shiva then creates, with his toe, he creates a chakra. Some episodes say he draws it on the sand, some say he draws it on the ocean. But with his foot, with his toe, he draws a huge chakra and challenges Jalandhara. If you think you're invincible, try to lift this chakra. Now Jalandhara, convinced that he is invincible, lifts the chakra, but that chakra effectively kills him because he no longer has the protection of. He attempted to, went very adharmic, attempting to even conquer Parvati. And second, his wife has abandoned his prayer and her chastity is lost, and so on. And so that protection is gone. So he is killed by this chakra. So if you look closely at this is Jalandhara lying down. This is a chakra. This is a chakra in Prayoga pose. It is actually in our, it's not facing us. It is cutting the neck of Jalandhara. And this sculpture is shown here with us. And Shiva doesn't have to do anything. He is only, he invites the Asura to cause his own destruction. And so that's what happens. So that's why he's shown as a yogic pose in the Samhara Murti, as in the Samhara episode. This is the slightly earlier episode where Shiva draws the chakra with his foot. He has lifted his leg and he is drawing the chakra with his toe. The sculpture is slightly damaged. You can see the face is damaged and all that. And in this episode, Brahma and Vishnu are shown in worshipping him. I think maybe Indra and Vishnu are shown in worship of him. And this chakra is the one that is in Shiva Purana is described as Sudarshana chakra. And later on, he gives this chakra as a present to Vishnu. So this is this murti in this particular form is called Chakradana Murti. And so this episode is followed by the Samhara of Jalandhara. So that is the Jalandhara story. Now, if you see this, now this episode will raise. So we have named this episode, seminar Demonology, taking a Western, word. But in our stories, the Asuras, Rakshasas, they are supposed to be cousins of the Daityas. They are, supposed to be son of Diti and Aditi or Dhanavas. And they are supposed to be related to the Devas also. And they also pray to Vishnu, pray to Shiva, and so on. Now, a question can be asked, was Vishnu's action not against Dharma? Can he do this? It's very similar to what he did with the Indra and Ahalya episode. Now, then the return question will ask, we are only accustomed to questions like this in Mahabharata, right? When Karna asks, is this Dharma? And then Krishna says, was it Dharma when you molested, Draupadi, dragged her during the wrong time of the month to the Sabha and humiliated her? Or when you all, discarding all the norms of war, attacked Abhimanyu when he was weaponless and killed him? So that questions are asked. So the similar questions are asked here. Is it dharma to use your wife's extreme chastity and dharma to wreak adharma and even seek the Lord's own consort, knowing that Eva and Shiva and Vishnu cannot defeat you? Is that fair? So then, in this case, is Vishnu's action then justified? Is it dharma after all to defeat adharma with at least the illusion of adharma? But the story gets more complicated. The story says that Vrinda was appalled that Vishnu would take to deception. And so she curses Vishnu. She says, I sought refuge in you. I was your undevoted, unmitigated, unblemished devotee, and you have betrayed me. So you should also take avatara on earth and suffer the pain of separation from your spouse, because it is your action that has caused me to become like this. And then so like Sati, she immolates herself and essence becomes an essence of, or she merges. The story goes that she merges into Parvati. And so this is where the Ramayana episode of later Vishnu has to take a avatara as Rama. Not just we only hear of the Ravana story, but we had to hear the says that Vishnu was, because of the curse of Vrinda, he took form as Rama and was separated from his wife for a year and was suffered all the pain of that separation and all that. So this is in brief the Jalandhara episode as shown in the some of the Pallava sculptures, but there are other sculptural depictions in the Kailasanatha temple itself. So I want to show two things because it is very deceptive. This is the fifth shrine of the outer shrine, the outer Devakulika, built by the Queen Rangapatha, not the inner shrine, but the outer shrine. And you can see Brahma and Vishnu praying to a Murti here. And this is Shiva in yoga pose. And he has an Akshamala. Here he is only Dakshinamurti. He is not Jalandhara Samhara. And here the Rishi seated below, the person seated below him is actually a Rishi. The four of the Rishis are supposed to receive their Sanakadi Rishis are supposed to receive their Shishya from the knowledge, Jnana from Dakshinamurti, and that is this episode. But a very similar other sculpture is actually Shiva as Jalandhara Samava. This is the fourth shrine, and here is Shiva seated here. And then this sculpture is extraordinarily damaged, but this I believe is the Jalandhara Samhara Murti, where he is shown destroying. In fact, there is a very large sculpture of Dakshinamurti on one of the walls. And this is the sculpture of Dakshinamurti on the walls. These are the rishis that you see receiving. He's in a Mauna pose as a Mauna Guru, and the rishis are receiving his knowledge, purely unspoken knowledge. And this is a very grand sculpture that you see of Dakshinamurti in Kailasanatha temple. This is on the southern face of the sanctum, not on the mini shrine, but on the main sanctum wall itself on the southern face. Opposite on the northern side, usually there is Brahma, but in Kailasanatha temple, while Dakshinamurti is featured on this large sculpture here, Jalandhara Samhara Murti is shown in this southern wall. You can see, Surya and Chandra worshipping him. He is seated in this yoga pata, in the yoga pose, the yoga pata. And here is Jalandhara with his weapon. And here you can see that chakra really killing him. And his hand is in Vismaya. Finally, he gets, humbled by his own misdeed and adharma. The chakra is, able to kill him because of his own arrogance and adharmic action. So this is shown there. It is very interesting how the sculptors have positioned these two sculptures. If you look at the temple from the top view, these are the inner shrines, the mala of the mini shrines here. This is the main sanctum. This is the southern wall and the northern wall, central part of the southern wall and the northern wall. And this Dakshinamurti that I just showed you in this previous picture is on that southern wall, and this Jalandhara Samhara is in the northern wall. So this red painted square is Dakshinamurti, and this blue painted square is Jalandhara Samhara. And opposite Dakshinamurti is not Shiva's Samhara Murti, and this here on the other side is not Shiva, but this one here is Brahma. So it is shown as Brahma worshipping Dakshinamurti here in this Devakulika on the other side, in the southern side. And in the northern side, you have Vishnu with Sridevi and Bhudevi worshipping Jalandhara Samhara, perhaps because he also receives the Sarshana Chakra. That is how this is depicted. When I showed you the outer shrines. This is the first and second shrine, outer shrine, third shrine, fourth shrine, and fifth shrine are here. So in this fourth and fifth shrine, you see the Yoga Dakshinamurti and the Jalandhara Samhara Murti. They are on the side walls, not on the back walls. So you can't even take pictures. You have to go. You can barely get into the gap between these two temples. There's barely 1 foot gap between these two. And you have to try and take a picture. So which is what I have done. There is another irony here. Shiva, I told you that we don't have time to go into all of this, but the southern wall. So basically, in this temple, in the eastern and western mini shrines, Devakulikas, you have either Somaskanda or some king and so on. So all of them have Somaskanda Murtis in the shrines, and kings and Devis are between the shrines. In the southern Devakulikas, you almost entirely have what is Shiva Samhara Murti, one or two with also Vishnu Samhara Murti, like Trivikrama and Narasimha and all that. And in the northern wall, you have Shiva as Anugraha Murti. He's not attacking anybody, he is blessing various people in various forms. And there is Kalyana Sundara Murti and, Somaskanda, Manmada Anugraha and so on, Vishnu Anugraha and so on. So it's very interesting. But so the other Samhara Murti versions of Shiva are all shown in full ferocity. For example, this is Gaja Samhara Murti in the top left. You can see he's tearing the elephant apart. Full ferocity is there. Parvati is even scared. He's warning Parvati not to look, turn around and so on. This is Gaja Samhara Murti. This is Veerabhadra destroying Dakshayaga. And you can see again he's in full ferocity here, using his weapon and attacking. This is not even an Asura. This is Brahma himself. This is Brahma's Chirascheda Murti. Shiva attacking Brahma and plucking one of his heads. Even here you can see he's attacking with his sword and in a Samhara Murti pose, in a battle pose. And this one is also a battle pose, though this is not a Samhara Murti. It is Kirata Arjuniam. It's a playful battle. Shiva teasingly tempts and toys with Arjuna. And Arjuna is very, very puzzled why he is unable to defeat a forest warrior, hunter, a Kirata. But that is that episode. Even this is shown as a battle pose. All these four are shown as battle pose. But the Jalandhara Samhara Murti, which is literally a Samhara, because it here is shown not a Shiva attacking Jalandhara, but in complete calm status, as he's doing yoga, and the Asura is destroyed by his own arrogance and the weapon he wields against himself. It's very interesting. You don't see this, you only see this in Pallava temples and not in all of them. This particular episode. The Cholas and the Pandyas and then Vijayanagar, all these kings built a lot of temples all over Tamil Nadu. They converted some of the brick temples of that period into stone temples. And if you go to some temple like this, very large temple with lot of murtis, like this one is Gangekonda Sodapuram. You could go to the Tanjavur big temple, you could go to Dharasuram, you could see, I've been to several of this. You see all of these murtis in the Koshtams, right? So several murtis are there. We just saw Dr. R.K. Rajarajan talk about this Tandava Shiva here. There is Harihara here. There is Uma Sahib. This is Rishabhantika, Ardhanari. This is Ganesha. This is Kala Samhara Murti. And, all of these sculptures are there. There is Dakshinamurti. All of these sculptures are there. But you rarely see Jalandhara Samhara in any of these sculptures. So that is another puzzle. Why did the later sculptors not feature Jalandhara? If there are any in some temple, please do let me know. I'd be very interested. I'd like to go visit that temple. But I have not seen it in most of the temple sites. One final shot. This is yet another Pallava temple in Kanchipuram. This is the Mukteshwara temple. So after this, perhaps introduction to Jalandhara, if you go to Mukteshwara and you see this thing, you will not be puzzled. It has, here you have Dakshinamurti seated under this banyan tree with all the rishis here. And then you go to the left, you see another Murti in yoga pose. And now you know this is not yoga Dakshinamurti, but it's Jalandhara Samhara. This is a close-up of it. And this is Jalandhara underneath him. So I hope I have thrown some light into this particular episode, and with certain unusual sculptures that are shown in the Pallava temples of Kanchipuram. So thank you once again for the opportunity, and for friends like G.S. Srinivasan, V.K. Srinivasan to give me photos, and Shankar Narayan explain the story and so on. Aravind Venkatraman and so on.